There was a moment, late in the evening, when Dalia stood at the edge of the grand ballroom, feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. The music had stopped. The lights had dimmed to a soft glow. Outside, thunder rumbled like a warning. She was looking across the wide floor, her dark brown eyes fixed on a scene she never saw coming. She had known fear in her life, like the time she lost her first apartment, or the day she was laid off from a job she loved, but this fear was different. This fear took hold of her, made her heart pound, and left her with a heaviness in her chest she could not escape. Christopher stood there, dressed in a tailored suit that fit his tall frame perfectly, holding a microphone. He was white, with hair the color of fresh snow, and his blue eyes seemed to cut through the shadows that lay across the room. Everyone stared at him, waiting to see what he would say next. He was known as a millionaire, a generous man who owned half a dozen companies, yet as she watched him, something was about to happen, something that would change her life forever. People whispered among themselves, shifting in their seats. The hush was unsettling, and Dalia was sure her mind was playing tricks on her when she noticed how Christopher's hand shook. She had never seen him show any sign of weakness. He always seemed calm, charming, and completely in control. Yet, tonight, he was the picture of unease. His lips parted, as though he wanted to speak, but no words came out. Instead, he was frozen under the spotlights. Dalia tried to step forward, to do something to help him, but her feet felt rooted to the polished floor. A series of doubts pulled her back. Would her presence help him, or only embarrass him more? She did not know. In the stillness, her mind replayed the strangest events of the evening. The dancers who never performed, the caterers who spilled the champagne, the whispers about a fake birthday party, and the curious glimpses Christopher had been throwing her way all night. The tension in the air made her skin tingle. She could barely think. Then, a single thought forced its way through all the confusion in her mind. Christopher was about to reveal something. Something important, maybe even something related to her. If she was correct, then the night was set to unravel in ways she never dreamed possible. But at that very moment, Dalia knew none of the details. She only felt the creeping chill in her gut, the fear that everything was too complicated, too big to handle. Little did she know, the hush in that room was the calm before the biggest surprise of her life, a surprise that would shake her world but also lead her to an unexpected happiness. Before standing in that glamorous ballroom, Dalia was just a hard-working woman who carried a spark of hope in her heart. Dalia Gardner was a 30-year-old African-American with a warm, rich complexion, curly black hair that framed her face, and brown eyes that shone with determination. She had grown up in a tight-knit family in a small town. Her mother, Regina, was a nurse who worked late nights at the local hospital, and her father, Walter, was a retired mechanic who spent his free time sharing jokes and bits of wisdom with Dalia. Growing up, Dalia had big dreams. She was creative and thoughtful. She was the kind of child who would find an old paint set and spend hours turning a blank canvas into vivid pictures of sunsets and fields of flowers. But life was not always fair. Money was tight, and her parents could only offer so much. Dalia did not complain. Instead, she helped around the house, took part-time jobs while in high school, and saved every spare coin. In college, she studied business because she hoped to start her own event planning company one day. She liked the idea of making big events sparkle, handling details with grace, and making sure every guest felt important. It was that knack for organizing that eventually led her to the city, where she worked for a famous event planning firm. She poured her time and energy into making other people's parties perfect. She told herself that one day she would have her own bright office with her name on the door. But city life was never easy. She lived in a small, cramped apartment that needed repairs. She had an old car with a squeaky engine that made her anxious whenever she drove long distances. Sometimes, she ate canned soup for dinner to stretch her budget a little further. Still, Dalia stayed positive. She loved her work, as exhausting as it was, because it gave her a chance to express her creativity and bring joy to people's lives. It was in this setting, working day and night, facing the challenges of city life, that Dalia first met Christopher. She never could have guessed how important he would become in her life. She was just an event planner, and he was a wealthy client who, at first glance, was a mystery to her. Christopher Harrison was tall, lean, and carried himself with a calm confidence that hinted at an ocean of secrets beneath his polished exterior. He had neat white blonde hair and sharp cheekbones that made him stand out in any crowd. Born into wealth, he had inherited a string of successful businesses. But Christopher was not just a playboy who threw money around. He was known to donate to many local charities, sponsor neighborhood projects, and invest in small startups that showed potential. When Dalia met him for the first time, she was tasked to plan a charity gala for one of his companies. Her boss, Amanda, had told her that Christopher was a very important client. He was also demanding and liked things done a certain way. Dalia remembered sitting across from him in a plush office, feeling his eyes study her every expression. He had a calmness about him that made her uneasy, as if he could see right through her. Yet she handled herself with grace. She presented her ideas for the gala with crisp details. She spoke of the color scheme, the floral arrangements, and the possible menus that would match the event's theme. Christopher listened without interruption, nodding now and then, tapping a pen lightly against his desk. When she was done, he paused for several seconds. She could feel her heart thumping in her chest. Finally, he said, "I like your ideas. They are fresh and inviting." Relief washed over Dalia. She smiled, thanked him politely, and walked out with a newfound confidence. While her coworkers teased her about how handsome he was, Dalia brushed off their comments. She saw him as a client, nothing more, nothing less. For her, it was an honor to handle a big job, and she intended to do it well. Over the weeks that followed, Dalia worked closely with Christopher. She set up meetings to go over budgets and finalize themes. He was busy, but he always found time to discuss her plans. She noticed small quirks about him. The way his eyes lit up when they talked about helping small businesses, how he smiled softly when discussing philanthropic work, and how he would politely dismiss compliments about his wealth, as though it did not matter to him at all. One day, while Dalia was in his office going over seating arrangements, Christopher offered her a cup of coffee. She was tired from balancing a large workload, and the gesture caught her off guard. He poured the coffee himself, handing her the cup, then asking if she was okay. The question seemed to hold more weight than simple politeness. Dalia shrugged it off. "I'm fine, just tired from planning the gala, but I'm used to it." He nodded as if that satisfied his curiosity, but he studied her face for a moment longer. For a brief second, Dalia thought she saw worry in his eyes. That hint of concern felt unusual. Why would a millionaire who had people taking care of his every need care about her well-being? She shoved the thought aside, telling herself that he was just being nice. But there were more such moments. The occasional phone calls after work hours to ask about an idea or to clarify a detail of the event. The quiet smiles whenever their eyes met. The questions he asked about her life, which seemed a bit personal for a client-boss relationship. Dalia put it all down to kindness. She did not want to imagine anything else. After all, she was just a woman from a humble background, and he was a millionaire with the world at his feet. The big charity gala was a success. Hundreds of guests arrived, dressed in their finest attire, and Dalia's planning made the evening run smoothly. The decorations sparkled with lights, the food was mouth-watering, and the music set the perfect mood. Christopher was generous with his praise afterward. He thanked Dalia with genuine gratitude, even giving her a small bonus. He also invited her to a smaller gathering that his company held to thank the staff who made the event possible. Dalia was hesitant to go. She did not consider herself part of his inner circle, but Christopher insisted, so she agreed. At that gathering, Dalia discovered a different side of Christopher. He mingled easily with people, telling humorous stories and laughing with them, yet he did not boast about his wealth. He seemed to listen more than he spoke, always giving others a chance to share their experiences. When Dalia found herself alone by the snack table, Christopher joined her. He nudged her arm gently, smiling. "Are you having fun?" She laughed quietly. "As much as I can. I'm not the best at parties when I'm not working." "You did a great job at the gala," he said, his blue eyes shining. "I hope you know that." A spark of pride warmed her chest. "Thank you. It means a lot." They spent the rest of the night talking about everything but work: favorite books, movies, travel destinations. Dalia mentioned her dream of starting her own event planning company one day. Christopher did not scoff. He did not roll his eyes. He listened with sincere interest, asking questions that showed he believed in her potential. By the end of the night, Dalia felt they had formed an unexpected friendship. It was comforting, even though a small part of her mind questioned if it was wise to grow close to him. But she did not linger on those doubts. She saw no harm in being friends with a kind soul, even if he was a millionaire. After the success of the gala, Dalia returned to her usual tasks, planning weddings and corporate dinners. But just a few weeks later, she got a call from Christopher's personal assistant. Apparently, Christopher had another job for her. He wanted her to plan his birthday party. It was set to be a large event, bigger than anything she had ever handled on her own. She was excited about the opportunity, but a small piece of her mind asked, "Why me?" There were many more experienced planners out there, yet Christopher's assistant was firm. Christopher himself had insisted on Dalia. When she met him in his office, Christopher gave her all the details. He wanted something that felt upscale yet intimate. Dalia asked about a guest list, a theme, and all the usual details. He provided them, but in a vague way. She found it odd. Usually, Christopher was decisive, but now he seemed to dodge certain questions about the entertainment or the final guest count. Still, Dalia dove into the project with her usual dedication. She booked a stylish ballroom at a luxury hotel, hired an impressive catering team, and organized a special dance performance that she thought would fit his tastes. Christopher made sure she had whatever budget she needed. He even approved some additions that Dalia thought were extravagant, such as real crystal chandeliers brought in just for the night. He told her, "Spare no expense. This is going to be a night I never forget." There was a flicker in his eyes when he said this, one that made Dalia's heart flutter, but she shrugged it off. She told herself she was just overthinking. As the planning continued, Dalia found herself in more frequent communication with Christopher beyond just emails about the party. Sometimes, he texted her about random thoughts. "Christopher, just tried a new coffee place on 5th Avenue. You might like it." "Dalia, thanks for the suggestion. Might check it out next time I need a caffeine fix." "Christopher, how's your day going?" "Dalia, busy but productive. How's yours?" These messages were short, but they had a warmth that was unusual for a formal business relationship. Dalia felt her heart skip whenever her phone pinged. Still, she told herself this was just a friendly connection. Maybe he was bored, or just wanted to chat. It did not have to mean anything else. Yet, as days turned to weeks, Dalia realized she was thinking of Christopher more often. She wondered about his day, how he spent his free time, and what it would be like to talk to him without always referencing work. She tried to push these thoughts aside, reminding herself of the gap between their lives. Meanwhile, Christopher seemed eager to support her. At times, he offered to fund some of her smaller personal projects. She refused politely, not wanting to feel indebted. He respected her decision, but asked if he could donate in a private capacity. Dalia finally agreed, feeling a warm glow in her heart that he cared so much. One weekend, Dalia drove back to her hometown to visit her parents. She needed a break from the city's noise, and she missed their company. Over dinner, she mentioned that she was planning a big birthday party for a wealthy client. Her mother, Regina, raised an eyebrow. "Wealthy, you say? Are you sure you're not mixing business with personal feelings?" Dalia nearly choked on her drink. "Mom, there's nothing like that going on," she said, feeling her cheeks grow hot. Her father, Walter, chimed in. "Hey, there's no shame if there is something. Sometimes, love finds us in odd places." Dalia shook her head. "It's not like that. He's just a client, a friend at best." Her mother placed a gentle hand on Dalia's shoulder. "Just be careful. Sometimes, when money is involved, people have hidden motives. But if your heart tells you he's sincere, don't ignore that feeling." Dalia's mind whirled with confusion. She had not even admitted to herself that she might have feelings for Christopher. She managed a weak smile, letting the conversation drift to safer topics. But later that night, while lying in her old room, she could not stop replaying her parents' words. She reminded herself that Christopher was simply a kind man who believed in her work. No reason to complicate things further. As the date of the party drew closer, Dalia noticed some strange details. Certain parts of the plan kept changing. For example, Christopher asked her to invite more people than originally planned, without providing a clear list of who these people were. When she pressed him for names, he told her not to worry, he would handle invitations himself. She found that odd. Then there was the entertainment. First, he wanted a live band. Then, he changed his mind to a DJ. Then, back to a band. One day, while triple-checking the items on her to-do list, Dalia discovered Christopher had not even sent out the official invites she had prepared. She confronted him, worried there was some miscommunication. He shrugged it off, telling her he had a special plan for the invitations and not to stress about it. He also told her he wanted the night to be full of surprises, not just for the guests, but for her as well. Dalia was more confused than ever. Why would she need to be surprised? It was his birthday party. Still, she focused on her job. The date was set, the hotel was booked, and everything else seemed in order. She hoped these last-minute changes would not wreck the entire night. Despite the confusion around the party, Dalia's friendship with Christopher seemed to deepen. They found moments between planning to chat about personal stuff, like their favorite travel memories or their childhood stories. Christopher shared that he was not always as confident as he seemed. Growing up in a wealthy family brought its own pressures, from public expectations to constant media scrutiny. He told her how he felt lonely sometimes, unsure if people liked him for who he was or for his money. Dalia felt a tug of sympathy. She had always thought money solved every problem, but hearing Christopher's words made her realize that wealth came with its own troubles. She told him about her family, how her parents had struggled to pay bills, how she had to learn to be responsible at a young age. Their conversations felt safe, like they could trust each other. At times, Dalia caught Christopher gazing at her with a gentle expression she could not quite decipher. When she asked him if something was wrong, he would smile and shake his head. A few times, Dalia contemplated the possibility that Christopher was interested in her. But she always dismissed the thought. It seemed too unlikely, too complicated. Why would a millionaire choose her, out of all the women he could have? She told herself to remain professional. Finally, the day before Christopher's grand birthday party arrived. Dalia was running around the luxury hotel, making sure every centerpiece was in place. Every table setting was perfect, and the lighting matched the mood Christopher had requested. The staff rushed to follow her instructions, and she used a checklist to avoid any mistakes. Even though she was busy, Dalia felt a quiver of nerves. She could not shake the sense that something was not adding up. The theme was set, the schedule in place, but Christopher kept hinting that there would be a special twist. Dalia was not sure if the twist was part of the entertainment or if he was doing something even more elaborate. That evening, Christopher showed up at the venue to check on final details. He wore a casual jacket and jeans, his white blonde hair slightly messy. Dalia's heart fluttered in her chest, though she tried to look calm. "You've outdone yourself," he said as he walked through the ballroom, examining the crystal chandeliers and the lavish floral decor. "It looks fantastic." She smiled. "I just hope it all runs smoothly tomorrow." He paused, as if fighting the urge to say something else. Finally, he reached for her hand and squeezed it gently. The gesture sent warmth racing through her arm. "Thank you, Dalia," he said, his voice low, "for everything." She tried to speak, but words did not form. Before she could say anything, he let go and walked away, leaving her with a swarm of butterflies in her stomach. The next evening, Dalia dressed in her best formal attire for the party. She wore a fitted black evening gown that hugged her curves without being too revealing, and her hair was styled in glossy curls. She tried not to overthink her appearance, reminding herself she was here to work, to ensure the event flowed seamlessly. Guests began to arrive, stepping out of expensive cars and walking down a red carpet that led to the grand entrance. Dalia stood near the main door, checking off names against the list. She recognized some of Christopher's business partners, charity directors, and a few celebrities. But something felt off. Some of the people on her guest list never appeared, while others were not on the list at all. Still, the party went on without a hitch, at least at first. The guests mingled, the live music filled the air, and waiters floated around with silver trays of hors d'oeuvres and champagne flutes. Dalia made sure everything ran to schedule, confirming the timing of the dinner, the speeches, and the entertainment. Christopher arrived a bit later. Heads turned as soon as he walked in. He was dressed in a stunning tailored suit, the fabric catching the golden glow of the chandeliers. He moved through the room with a friendly smile, greeting each guest as if they were the only person in the world. Yet every once in a while, his gaze would slide across the crowd to find Dalia. Their eyes would meet, and he would give her a warm nod, a silent recognition of her hard work. After the dinner, the band played a slow, melodic tune that echoed around the ballroom. Dalia was relieved the food service had gone perfectly, with no last-minute emergencies. The dancers she had booked were next. She had rehearsed with them earlier that day. They had a routine filled with grace and energy, meant to captivate the audience. But when the time came for them to perform, Dalia was stunned to see only half of them appear on stage. The music played, but the choreography looked incomplete. She rushed backstage to find out what was happening, only to discover that Christopher had asked half the dancers not to show up. She confronted one of the dancers, who simply shrugged. "We were told your client changed the routine last minute." Annoyed and confused, Dalia hurried to find Christopher. She spotted him at the edge of the ballroom, talking with a group of men in suits. She waited until he was free and then approached him with a whisper. "Why did you send away half the dancers?" He raised an eyebrow. "I'm sorry if this messed with your plan, Dalia, but I have something else planned for the rest of the night, and it wouldn't have fit." "But we rehearsed for weeks," Dalia argued. "This is your birthday party. Why change it last minute?" He leaned closer. "Trust me on this," he said, eyes glinting with a mysterious light.
"You'll understand soon."
The party continued, though Dalia could feel the tension building inside her. She hated last-minute changes, especially ones she was kept in the dark about. As the night wore on, she noticed other oddities. The caterers seemed nervous, and the hotel staff kept whispering among themselves. It was as if everyone knew something she did not. Finally, a lull came in the evening's schedule. The guests had finished dessert, the band was taking a break, and the dance floor was empty. Christopher took the microphone, signaling that he wanted to address the room. Dalia positioned herself at the back, as she always did, ready to coordinate any follow-up instructions. Christopher smiled as he welcomed everyone, thanking them for attending. He talked about the joys of life, friendships, and his appreciation for their support. Then, he paused, his eyes flicking toward the back of the room, where Dalia stood. A small hush fell over the crowd. Tonight, Christopher said, is not just about my birthday. It's also about celebrating the people who have made a difference in my life this past year. The guests looked around confused. Dalia felt her stomach knot. What was he doing? He continued, there's someone here who has put her heart and soul into planning this event, and so many others. She is talented, kind, and dedicated to making every moment special. Dalia, please come up here. A wave of shock spread through Dalia. Her breath caught in her throat, and she stayed rooted to the spot for a moment, unsure if she had heard correctly. The crowd turned to look at her, and she felt a rush of heat flood her cheeks. Slowly, she made her way through the parting crowd, her heels clicking on the polished floor. Once she stood beside Christopher, he took her hand. The entire room fell silent. Christopher kept hold of Dalia's hand as he spoke to the crowd. I owe a lot to Dalia. She has made my events unforgettable, but more than that, she has shown me what it means to be genuine. When we first met, I was just a client to her, and she treated me with the same respect and warmth she gives everyone. He paused, turning to face Dalia directly. She noticed his voice had a slight tremor. But I have a confession to make, he said. Tonight, this is not really my birthday party. The room erupted in gasps. Dalia's eyes widened. He had told her it was a birthday celebration. How could it not be his birthday? Confusion swirled in her mind. Christopher continued, I mean, my birthday is next month, but I needed a reason to gather everyone, and to do something special. His voice dropped a notch, so only she could hear the next sentence. I did it all for you. Dalia's heart pounded. For her? Why? She stared at him, struggling to find words. The suspense was almost unbearable. Turning back to the guests, Christopher spoke in a voice that rang with emotion. I wanted to create an evening that would be remembered not as my birthday, but as the night I got to show someone very special just how much she means to me. The audience murmured, eyes flickering between Christopher and Dalia. For a second, Dalia worried she might faint. The closeness of Christopher, the energy in the room, and the realization that he had orchestrated this entire evening for her felt overwhelming. Christopher lifted the microphone away from his lips, handing it off to the nearest attendant. Then, he reached into the pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Dalia watched, her breath catching in her throat. She guessed what might be happening, but her mind refused to accept it. Christopher sank to one knee. The crowd erupted in excited gasps and applause. Dalia's hands flew to her mouth. She could barely believe what she was seeing. Dalia Gardner, he said, looking up at her with a mixture of hope and nervousness. From the moment I met you, I saw a light in you that I couldn't ignore. You are talented, strong, and you have a heart that cares for everyone around you. I know this is sudden, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Tears burned in Dalia's eyes. The grand ballroom, the guests, the shimmering lights, they all faded into the background. Will you do me the honor of becoming my partner in life? He asked, opening the box to reveal a delicate ring with a sparkling diamond. Dalia's throat felt tight. Christopher, she whispered, her voice trembling. I don't know what to say. This is so unexpected. He stood, still holding her hand. "I know it is, and I understand if you need time to think." The room was dead silent. Everyone waited, breathless, for Dalia's response. She could hardly process the thoughts racing through her head, the difference in their backgrounds, his wealth, her normal life. Then she looked into his eyes, and she saw genuine love there, love that she never thought she deserved. Finally, she found her voice. "Yes," she whispered, tears falling down her cheeks. "Yes, I will." A burst of applause shook the walls of the ballroom. People cheered, some of them standing and clapping. Christopher slipped the ring onto Dalia's finger, and she felt the press of the cool metal against her skin. Then he pulled her close, and in front of everyone, he pressed his lips to hers in a gentle, sweet kiss. The energy in the room was electric. People congratulated Christopher and Dalia, hugging them, clapping them on the back, and offering words of support. Champagne was poured, and glasses clinked in celebration. The music started again, livelier than before, and couples flocked to the dance floor. Dalia felt as if she was living in a dream. She drifted from one conversation to another, barely able to form complete sentences. All she knew was that Christopher was by her side, his presence making her feel safe and cherished. At one point, she and Christopher slipped away to a quiet corner. "I still can't believe this," she murmured, looking at the ring on her hand. It sparkled under the soft lights, a reminder that all of this was real. Christopher smiled. "I've wanted to tell you how I felt for a while now, but I didn't know how. I decided to do something grand and unforgettable. I'm sorry if it was a bit too much." She shook her head, laughing softly. "It's more than I ever could have imagined. But are you sure?" His face grew serious. "I've never been more certain. I love you, Dalia." Hearing those words sent a warm flutter through her heart. She realized that she felt the same, though she had been scared to admit it. "I love you too," she said, her voice trembling with raw emotion. They stood there for a moment, holding each other, letting the weight of what had just happened sink in. Soon, guests surrounded them again, begging them to dance. Dalia allowed Christopher to lead her to the center of the dance floor, where they swayed in each other's arms, oblivious to the world around them. The days after the party were a blur. Word spread quickly about the millionaire who threw a fake birthday party just to propose to his event planner. The media caught wind of it, but Christopher used his influence to keep them at bay, insisting that he wanted to protect Dalia's privacy as much as possible. Dalia called her parents to share the news. She was met with stunned silence at first, followed by squeals of joy from her mother and a string of proud exclamations from her father. They wanted to meet Christopher properly, and Dalia promised to arrange a visit soon. Dalia also spoke to Amanda, her boss, who was overjoyed but also worried about losing her best event planner. "Does this mean you're quitting?" Amanda asked. "I don't know yet," Dalia admitted. "I still love my work, and I want to continue planning events, but I also have to think about this new life with Christopher." Amanda understood. She gave Dalia a big hug, telling her she deserved all the happiness in the world. Despite her happiness, Dalia could not help feeling a small current of fear. She was engaged to a wealthy man. She worried that people might think she was a gold digger. She worried about how her life would change if she accepted Christopher's world fancy parties, high-profile events, and constant media attention. Christopher noticed her unease. One evening, when they were having a quiet dinner at his penthouse, he gently touched her hand. She hesitated, swirling her fork around her plate. "I'm not used to all this. The spotlight, the attention, I'm worried people will judge me or think I'm with you just for your money." He nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. "That's a common concern. But I know you, Dalia. You are with me for the right reasons. People can think what they want, but they don't know our hearts." She felt a rush of gratitude. "I also worry about losing my independence. I've fought hard for what I have." Christopher's voice was firm yet kind. "I don't want you to lose yourself. If you want to keep working, I'll support you. If you want to start your own company, I'll fund it or cheer you on from the side, whatever you prefer. Your dreams matter to me." In that moment, Dalia realized just how deep his love ran. He was not trying to change her. He was trying to be a part of her journey. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling her fears ease. The following week, Christopher flew with Dalia to her hometown. They visited her parents in the small house where she had grown up. Regina greeted them at the door, and Walter was waiting in the living room, hands clasped in excitement. Christopher, ever the gentleman, brought flowers for Regina and a bottle of aged whiskey for Walter. Dalia could see her parents warming up to him immediately. During dinner, Christopher answered their questions politely, often praising Dalia and thanking her parents for raising such a remarkable woman. Later that evening, Regina pulled Dalia aside in the kitchen. "He's so respectful and sincere," she whispered. "I can see how much he cares about you." Dalia blushed. "He does, Mom. I feel it in my heart." "I'm proud of you," Regina said, giving Dalia a tight hug. "You've found a man who sees your worth. Don't let fear stop you from being happy." Soon it was time for Dalia to meet Christopher's parents as well. They were older, refined people who had built their fortune through wise business choices. His mother, Elise, greeted Dalia with a polite smile, though Dalia sensed some hesitation. His father, Bernard, appeared more welcoming, patting Dalia on the shoulder as he congratulated her and Christopher on their engagement. They had lunch in a lavish dining room, complete with antique furniture and a breathtaking view of the city skyline. Dalia tried not to stare at the wealth around her, but it was overwhelming. She reminded herself to stay calm and be herself. Christopher's mother sipped her tea, carefully studying Dalia. "So," Dalia nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I've been doing it for a few years now, and I love creating memorable experiences for people." Elise continued with more questions about Dalia's background, her family, and her ambitions. Dalia answered politely, aware of the tension. She did not want to come across as inadequate. After the meal, Elise eventually softened, admitting that she only wanted to be sure Christopher was with someone who truly cared for him. Dalia felt relieved. When it was time to leave, Christopher's parents walked them to the door. Elise offered Dalia a gentle smile. "Welcome to the family," she said quietly. "I see how happy you make my son, and for that, I'm grateful." Christopher, true to his word, encouraged Dalia to pursue her dream of starting her own event planning company. One day he set up a meeting with a real estate agent to show her a spacious office suite in an upscale part of the city. Dalia's eyes widened when she saw it. The space was perfect, plenty of room for her team, a large conference room, and a cozy reception area. She hesitated as she looked over the lease agreement. The rent was high, and she had never managed her own company before. "I don't know if I can handle this," she told Christopher. "It's a huge step." "You can handle it," he reassured her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You have the talent and the drive. I believe in you." With his support and her own savings, Dalia decided to take the leap. She signed the lease, feeling a surge of excitement and fear. Christopher promised to help if she ever ran into financial trouble, but Dalia insisted she wanted to stand on her own feet as much as possible. He agreed, respecting her independence. As news of their engagement spread, tabloids ran stories with headlines like "Millionaire to marry event planner" and "A fairy tale engagement." Paparazzi snapped photos of them whenever they went out. Dalia found it stressful at first, ducking behind Christopher's shoulder to avoid the flashes. But he taught her how to navigate the attention, reminding her to stay calm and not engage with strangers who shouted questions. Not all the headlines were kind. Some articles hinted that Dalia was out for money, while others speculated about how long this relationship would last. Dalia was hurt by these rumors, but Christopher comforted her, telling her that such gossip was inevitable. During one low moment, Dalia vented her frustrations to Christopher. "I just want a normal life," she said, tears in her eyes. "I don't want people judging me." Christopher held her close. "It's hard. But no matter what the world says, we know our truth." Her heart swelled with gratitude, and she leaned into his embrace, focusing on the love they shared rather than the noise outside. Ironically, Dalia, the event planner, was now in charge of her own wedding. Friends joked that she would go overboard, but Dalia wanted something warm and heartfelt. She pictured a ceremony in a lush garden, with flowers in every color. She wanted her family and close friends to be there, rather than a crowd of strangers. Christopher agreed, supporting her every step of the way. Together, they chose a beautiful estate with sprawling lawns and a view of rolling hills. Dalia coordinated the details meticulously, from the floral arrangements to the musical selections. She even baked sample cupcakes at home, testing flavors for the wedding cake. Though Christopher offered unlimited funds, Dalia tried to keep the wedding tasteful, not over the top. She wanted the focus to be on the love they shared, not on an extravagant display. A week before the wedding, Dalia was finalizing the seating chart when an email popped up in her inbox. It was from an old coworker, Liz, warning her that a past flame of Christopher's intended to crash the wedding. This woman, Ashley, had once dated Christopher briefly and seemed to harbor resentment over their breakup. At first, Dalia shrugged it off. She did not want to waste energy on petty drama, but when she told Christopher about it, he grew concerned. "Ashley tried calling me a few times after we broke up," he explained. "She couldn't accept that it was over. I'll make sure security keeps an eye out for her." Despite that reassurance, Dalia could not help feeling a twinge of anxiety. She wanted her wedding day to be perfect. The thought of an uninvited guest causing a scene made her uneasy. The night before the wedding, Dalia stayed in a peaceful suite at the estate, along with her mother and best friend. She tried to rest, but nerves made sleep difficult. She got up and walked out to the garden, where the moonlight cast a soft glow over the flowers and trees. In the quiet darkness, she took a few deep breaths, remembering how far she had come. From her small apartment, struggling to pay bills, to now owning her own event planning company and marrying the man she loved. It felt like a dream. Her mother found her there, wrapping a light shawl around Dalia's shoulders. "Couldn't sleep?" Dalia shook her head. "I'm nervous, worried about everything going right." Regina gave her daughter a fond look. "No wedding is ever perfect. Things happen. But you and Christopher love each other, and that's what matters." Dalia smiled, resting her head on her mother's shoulder. "Thank you, Mom." The big day dawned bright and clear. Guests started arriving in the late morning, taking in the gorgeous estate. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh flowers. The wedding's color scheme featured soft pinks, creams, and a touch of gold. Dalia's employees ran around, making sure everything was in place. Dalia got dressed in a suite reserved for the bridal party. Her gown was a classic white dress that flattered her figure, with delicate lace accents on the sleeves. Her hair was pinned up, allowing a few soft curls to frame her face. Regina helped with the finishing touches, tears sparkling in her eyes as she told Dalia how beautiful she looked. Meanwhile, Christopher stood at the altar in a sleek black tuxedo, hands clasped in front of him. He looked calm, but anyone who knew him well could see the excitement flashing in his eyes. His best man teased him about wearing out the floor with his pacing, but Christopher laughed it off, saying he just could not wait to see Dalia. Finally, the music began, a gentle tune played by a small string ensemble. All heads turned as Dalia stepped out, holding a simple bouquet of roses. She felt her heart hammer in her chest, but the moment she locked eyes with Christopher, everything else melted away. She made her way down the aisle, accompanied by her father. Christopher's expression was one of awe, as if he had never seen anything so beautiful in his life. Dalia felt her eyes well with tears, overwhelmed by the love radiating between them. The officiant began the ceremony with a warm welcome. Then, Christopher and Dalia exchanged vows they had written themselves. Christopher cleared his throat, looking into Dalia's eyes. "From the moment I first met you, I knew there was something special about you. You've shown me what it means to love without conditions, to be kind, and to believe in the goodness in people. I promise to always support you, to cherish your dreams, and to stand by your side through every high and low." Tears slipped down Dalia's cheeks as she smiled. She took a shaky breath. "Christopher, you have shown me a world I never imagined, not just because of your wealth, but because of your heart. You've taught me that real love is about partnership, respect, and understanding. I promise to love you honestly and fiercely, to hold your hand in every storm, and to celebrate every joy with you." They slipped rings onto each other's fingers, and the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Christopher and Dalia shared a tender kiss that sealed their union. After the ceremony, guests moved to the reception area, where a large tent stood, decorated with twinkling lights and cascading flower arrangements. The food was a feast, the music lively, and everyone was eager to celebrate. Dalia and Christopher made their rounds, thanking people for coming. At one point, security approached them, whispering that a woman had tried to enter without an invitation. They had turned her away. Dalia's heart sank. This had to be Ashley. Christopher and Dalia stepped outside the tent. Sure enough, Ashley was standing there, arguing with the security guards. She was dressed in a flashy gown, her hair styled as if she were attending a red carpet event. Her eyes flared when she saw Christopher. "You can't marry her," she spat, voice cracking with anger. Christopher held Dalia's hand tightly. "Ashley, this is my wedding day," he said calmly. "I'm sorry you're upset, but you need to leave." Ashley tried to push forward. The guards gently but firmly held her back. "We had something special once," she cried. "This isn't fair." Dalia felt a flash of pity for the woman, but Christopher shook his head. "That was in the past. I'm happy now, with Dalia. Please respect that." Security escorted Ashley off the property, and Christopher led Dalia back inside, stroking her hand to calm her nerves. Dalia felt rattled, but also oddly relieved that the drama was over. Christopher's unwavering stand by her side reminded her that their bond was strong. The reception continued late into the night. There were speeches from close friends, heartfelt toasts, and plenty of laughter. Dalia tossed her bouquet, and one of her oldest friends caught it, sparking cheers from the crowd. Christopher and Dalia shared their first dance as husband and wife to a slow, romantic melody that seemed to seal them into their own little world. In that moment, Dalia realized how far she had come. She was once a small-town girl with big dreams, unsure if she could ever make them a reality. Now, she was the owner of her own event planning company, married to a man who loved her deeply for who she was. The warm glow of the chandeliers, the soft hum of music, and the gentle press of Christopher's hand against her waist all told her the same thing. She was safe, she was loved, and she had found her place in the world. As the night wore on, people trickled out, leaving only the closest friends and family. Dalia and Christopher stepped outside for a moment to breathe in the fresh night air. The stars shone overhead, and the estate lights glimmered across the lawn. Christopher turned to Dalia, cupping her face in his hands. "I never thought I would be this happy," he said softly. She smiled, leaning into his touch. "Neither did I." He drew her in for a tender kiss, the kind that spoke of promises and hope, and a future they both believed in. Days passed, and life settled into a new rhythm for Christopher and Dalia. They returned to the city, moving into a penthouse that still felt too large for Dalia sometimes. But she made it home, adding her personal touches, from pictures of her family to cozy blankets on the sofas. Her event planning company thrived, attracting new clients who admired her creativity. She hired a small team, training them with the same passion she had always shown. Christopher invested in a few charity projects and continued running his businesses, but he always found time to be with Dalia. They learned to handle the public attention together, facing rumors with calm honesty. Friends teased them about how they still acted like newlyweds even months later. Indeed, the spark between them never dimmed. One afternoon, Dalia and Christopher took a walk in a beautiful city park. She laughed as he chased after a stray balloon for a child who had lost it. Later, they sat on a bench, sharing coffee and talking about the future. They spoke of maybe starting a family someday, of traveling the world, of living a life that balanced love, work, and kindness to others. In the quiet of that moment, Dalia looked at Christopher's profile, the way his white blonde hair shone in the sunlight, and she felt a surge of thankfulness. The man she once knew only as a client had become her husband, her friend, her partner in every sense. And even though their journey began with a fake birthday party, it turned into the most real love she had ever experienced. They walked back to their car, hands intertwined. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, and new plans. But whatever happened, they would face it side by side, with hearts full of faith in each other. Because when you find a love that sees beyond wealth or status, when you find someone who values who you truly are, that love becomes your homiest safe place where all your dreams and possibilities live and grow.